The world is quieter at 5 a.m., and that's when your destiny can finally hear you. I know what it feels like to wake up tired before the day even begins, to chase dreams with half-open eyes, to promise yourself, tomorrow I'll start, and then hit snooze on your own potential. This isn't about waking up early to prove something to the world. This is about waking up early to meet yourself, before life starts asking for pieces of you. When you choose to wake up at 5 a.m., something subtle but powerful begins to shift inside you. No one is clapping, no one is praising you. The room is quiet, the world is asleep, and that silence becomes the first test of your character. Discipline is not about punishment. It is about self-respect in motion. It is the way you tell yourself, without words, that your life matters enough to be led with intention. Most people wait for motivation to arrive like a guest. But discipline doesn't wait. Discipline shows up even when motivation is late, tired, or missing entirely. At 5 a.m., you are not obeying your mood. You are leading it. And that leadership begins to spill into every other part of your life. You stop asking, do I feel like it? And start asking, what kind of person am I becoming? There was a time in my life when I believed discipline was restrictive, that it would take away my freedom. But I learned something profound along the way. Discipline doesn't cage you, it frees you. When you master your morning, you stop being controlled by chaos. You stop rushing. You stop apologizing for being behind. You start moving with quiet authority because you've already won the hardest battle of the day, the battle with yourself. Waking up early teaches you delayed gratification in its purest form. The bed is warm, sleep is tempting, comfort whispers convincing lies. But discipline teaches you how to say no to what feels good now, so you can say yes to what will feel right later. That one decision, to rise instead of roll over, strengthens a muscle most people never train. And that muscle is integrity with yourself. You begin to trust yourself more. Because trust is built when actions match promises. Every morning you wake up at 5 a.m., you reinforce a powerful truth. I do what I say I will do. That self-trust becomes the foundation of confidence. Not loud confidence, not performative confidence, but the kind that steadies you when things fall apart, the kind that keeps you grounded when success finally arrives. Discipline also humbles you. It reminds you that growth is not glamorous. It's repetitive, it's quiet, it's often lonely. But in that loneliness, you meet your true self, without distractions, without noise, without performance. You learn how your mind works. You face your resistance. You learn patience with your own progress. And that patience becomes compassion for yourself and for others. At 5 a.m., discipline teaches you presence. You move slower. You think deeper. You stop reacting and start responding. You realize that most of life's regrets don't come from failure, but from inconsistency. From starting strong and stopping early. From waiting for the perfect moment instead of honoring the present one. Discipline trains you to keep going when the novelty fades. And slowly something changes in the way you carry yourself. You speak with more intention. You listen more deeply. You waste less time explaining yourself. Because discipline gives you an inner alignment that no external validation can replace. You no longer need to prove your worth. You're too busy building it. This kind of discipline spills into your relationships. You become more reliable. Into your work, you become more focused. Into your faith, you become more grounded. You stop looking for shortcuts and start respecting the process. and respect for the process always leads to results that last. Waking up at 5 a.m. is not about the clock, it's about the covenant you make with your future self. A promise that says, I will show up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That promise shapes your identity, and once your identity changes, your life has no choice but to follow. This is where self-respect is born, not in big declarations, but in small, repeated acts of discipline that say, every single day, I matter enough to lead my own life. When you wake up at 5 a.m., you're not just starting a day, you're shaping a life. Mornings are not neutral. They quietly decide who you become. The first moments after you wake up are when your mind is most honest, most open, most impressionable. Whatever you allow into your spirit at that hour sets the emotional temperature for everything that follows. Most people don't begin their day, they react to it. They wake up late, rush through routines, scroll through other people's lives, absorb stress before they've even breathed. By the time the sun is fully up, their energy is already spent, they're behind before they begin. But 5 a.m. changes that equation. It gives you ownership over the start of your story, instead of letting the world write the first chapter for you. In the early morning, your thoughts are softer, your ego is quieter, your fears haven't fully woken up yet. This is where intention belongs, because intention planted early grows stronger roots. A few quiet minutes of reflection can change the way you handle pressure later. A few pages of reading can reshape how you think under stress. A short prayer or moment of gratitude can realign your heart when the day tries to pull it apart. Your morning habits are small, but they are mighty. They compound. A rushed morning creates a rushed life. A grounded morning creates a centered one. You may not notice the change in a week, but after months you'll realize something has shifted. You're less reactive, less scattered, more deliberate. That's not an accident. That's the result of mornings lived on purpose. At 5 a.m., you're not performing for anyone. There's no audience, no pressure to impress. That's why it's powerful. You're doing the work when it's just you and your commitment. This is where clarity is built. When you sit with yourself, before the noise arrives, you learn what truly matters to you. Not what the world is demanding, but what your soul is asking for. Your morning doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be intentional. It's not about doing everything, it's about doing the right things. A walk, a stretch, a notebook, silence. These moments don't look productive on the outside, but inside, they are reorganizing you. They are teaching your nervous system calm. They are reminding your mind that you are safe, capable, and prepared. When you win the morning, you stop chasing control later, because control is an illusion, but preparation is real. A centered morning gives you emotional margin. So when things go wrong, and they will, you don't collapse. You respond. You don't take everything personally. You don't spiral. You remember who you were before the noise started. There's also something sacred about watching the world wake up while you're already awake. It reminds you that life is happening with or without your readiness. And instead of being dragged into it, you are stepping into it. Awake, aware, grounded. You move differently when you've had time to meet yourself first. Your mornings become a mirror. They reflect your priorities back to you. If you give your best energy to everyone else and leave nothing for yourself, the mirror will show exhaustion. But when you claim your mornings, the mirror starts showing strength, peace, direction, confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. This is how identities are shaped, not by big decisions once in a lifetime, but by small decisions every single morning. Who you are becoming is hiding in how you wake up. And when you choose to wake up at 5 a.m. with intention, you're not just starting your day right, you're slowly becoming someone who knows how to lead their own life. When you wake up at 5 a.m., you begin to understand something the world rarely teaches you. That peace is not a luxury you earn after success. It is a power you must protect before it. In a culture that glorifies noise, speed, and constant urgency, choosing quiet becomes an act of strength. And that quiet, especially in the early morning, starts changing you from the inside out. Peace is not the absence of ambition. It is the presence of clarity. At 5 a.m., before notifications, before expectations, before the weight of other people's needs, you experience a kind of stillness that sharpens your mind instead of dulling it. You're not distracted by what everyone else is doing. You're not measuring yourself against timelines that were never meant for you. You are simply present. And presence is where power lives. Most people think power looks loud. They think it looks like dominance, control, or being the strongest voice in the room. But real power is calm. Real power listens. Real power knows when to act and when to wait. The early morning teaches you this without lectures. In silence, you start hearing your own thoughts clearly. You notice patterns. You recognize fears that were hiding behind busyness. You reconnect with intuition, the voice that gets drowned out during the day. Peace at 5 a.m. gives you emotional regulation before the world tries to dysregulate you. You are no longer starting the day already overstimulated. You're not reacting to emails with anxiety or carrying someone else's stress into your body. Instead, you move from a place of grounding. And when pressure shows up later, it doesn't knock you off balance as easily. Calm becomes your default, not something you chase at night when you're already exhausted. There's a reason the most impactful decisions are rarely made in chaos. Clarity needs space. And 5 a.m. creates that space. In those quiet moments, you can ask yourself honest questions. Am I aligned? Am I chasing this because it matters, or because I'm afraid to slow down? Am I living on purpose or just surviving the pace? Peace allows truth to rise. And truth, while sometimes uncomfortable, always leads you forward. You also begin to realize how much energy you've been leaking, worrying about things you can't control, replaying conversations, anticipating problems that haven't happened yet. The stillness of early morning shows you how unnecessary that weight is. You learn to breathe again, deeply, fully, and with each breath your nervous system softens, your shoulders relax, your mind opens. This is not weakness, this is recalibration. When peace becomes part of your daily rhythm, your relationships change. You stop overreacting. You stop needing to win every argument. You start listening instead of defending. Because a calm mind doesn't need to prove itself. It understands that not every battle deserves your energy. And discernment, knowing what deserves your energy, is one of the highest forms of power. Peace also protects your creativity. Inspiration doesn't thrive in panic. It needs room to wander. In the quiet of 5 a.m., ideas come without force. Solutions appear without pressure. You're not trying so hard, you're allowing. And that shift changes the quality of your work. It becomes more intentional, more honest, more aligned with who you really are. There will be days when the silence feels uncomfortable, when your thoughts feel loud, when unresolved emotions surface. But that's part of the power. Peace doesn't mean avoiding discomfort. It means facing it without running. Early mornings give you the courage to sit with yourself, even when it's not easy. And the more you practice that, the less you fear your own depth. Eventually, peace stops being something you experience only in the morning. It starts following you into meetings, into conversations, into moments of uncertainty. People will notice, not because you announce it, but because your presence feels steady, grounded, safe, and in a world full of chaos, that kind of presence is rare. Waking up at 5 a.m. teaches you that peace is not something you wait for at the end of the journey. It is something you carry with you. And when you learn how to protect it, honor it, and lead from it, you move through life with a quiet authority that no noise can overpower. When you commit to waking up at 5 a.m., you begin to learn a lesson that reshapes how you approach every goal in your life. Consistency will always outlive intensity. The world celebrates bursts of passion, dramatic starts, loud declarations. But life is not changed by what you do once. It is changed by what you do repeatedly, especially on the days when nothing inside you feels inspired. At 5 a.m., there is no rush of adrenaline, no external reward, no instant gratification. And that's the point. This hour teaches you how to show up without needing to feel powerful first. You learn that progress doesn't require fireworks. It requires faithfulness. You begin to understand that small actions done daily carry more weight than grand efforts done occasionally. Some mornings you'll wake up energized. Others you'll wake up heavy, unsure, and tired. But consistency doesn't ask how you feel, it asks who you are. It asks whether you're willing to honor your commitment, even when the excitement has faded. And every time you choose to rise anyway, you strengthen a deep inner resilience that cannot be taught through words. Consistency at 5 a.m. builds patience, because results don't show up immediately. You won't transform overnight. You won't suddenly feel unstoppable. Instead, the change happens quietly. You become a little more focused, a little more disciplined, a little more calm. And then one day you look back and realize you're no longer the person who quits when things get uncomfortable. This is where many people lose momentum in life. They confuse slow progress with failure. They expect instant proof that their effort matters. But consistency teaches you to trust what you cannot yet see. It trains you to believe in the compound effect, that small, repeated actions are always working in your favor, even when the evidence isn't visible yet. Waking up early every day shows you the truth about mastery. Nothing meaningful is built in extremes. Extremes burn out. Balance endures. 5 a.m. doesn't demand perfection. It asks for presence. It asks for repetition. And repetition over time becomes identity. You stop being someone who is trying to improve and start being someone who lives with discipline. This consistency begins to influence how you approach challenges. You stop looking for shortcuts. You stop expecting quick wins. You understand that anything worth having deserves patience. And because you've practiced showing up daily in the quiet, you're no longer shaken by slow seasons. You know how to stay. There's also humility in consistency. You realize that greatness is not glamorous. It's built on ordinary days doing ordinary things with extraordinary commitment. No one sees you at 5 a.m. No one praises you for it. And yet, that unseen effort is shaping the strength everyone will admire later. Consistency also removes fear. When you know you will show up again tomorrow, failure loses its power. You stop being afraid of mistakes because you're not relying on one perfect moment. You're relying on persistence. And persistence is forgiving. It allows room for growth, for learning, for becoming At 5 a.m., you practice the art of staying focused, staying committed, staying patient. That practice becomes a life skill. When relationships get hard, you stay. When work gets challenging, you stay. When self-doubt creeps in, you stay with the process instead of running from it. Eventually, consistency rewrites your self-image. You no longer see yourself as someone who starts and stops. You see yourself as someone who finishes. Someone who can be trusted with responsibility. Someone who doesn't need constant motivation because discipline has taken its place. Waking up at 5 a.m. teaches you that intensity may get attention, but consistency creates transformation. And once you learn how to stay steady in the quiet, you become unstoppable in the noise. When you wake up at 5 a.m., you are making a decision that most people postpone their entire lives. The decision to sacrifice comfort now instead of paying for it later. This choice is rarely celebrated because sacrifice never looks attractive in the moment. Comfort feels kind, it feels deserved. It whispers that you can start tomorrow, that one more night won't matter. But time has a way of collecting every unpaid bill, and sooner or later, comfort sends the invoice. Early mornings teach you the true cost of delay. Every extra hour of sleep taken from discipline is borrowed from clarity, growth, and momentum. And while the price may seem small at first, it compounds. Missed opportunities don't announce themselves. They pass quietly, disguised as not yet or maybe later. Waking up at 5 a.m. makes you conscious of time, and once you become conscious of time, you stop wasting it. Sacrifice in the morning is honest. You feel it immediately. The body resists, the mind negotiates, every excuse sounds reasonable. But this is where strength is forged. You learn that discomfort is not a threat, it's a teacher. It shows you where growth lives. It reveals what you want badly enough to endure inconvenience for, and the ability to endure is the difference between potential and fulfillment. Most people think sacrifice means losing something, but in reality, sacrifice is an exchange. You trade ease for excellence. You trade distraction for direction. You trade short-term pleasure for long-term peace. At 5 a.m., you are not giving something up, you are investing. And every investment requires patience before it pays off. There will be mornings when staying in bed feels harmless, but those moments add up. The cost of always choosing comfort shows up later as stress, regret, and the painful question of what if. Waking up early protects you from that future. It forces you to confront your habits before they harden into limitations. Sacrifice also builds humility. You stop feeling entitled to ease. You understand that meaningful lives are built through effort, not convenience. This mindset changes how you approach everything. You stop asking, is this easy? And start asking, is this worth it? That single shift changes careers, relationships, and destinies. At 5 a.m., sacrifice becomes intentional. You choose what you're willing to give up and what you refuse to lose. You stop sacrificing your dreams for temporary comfort. You stop trading your future for a few extra minutes of sleep. Instead, you offer your effort willingly, knowing it will return to you in strength and opportunity. There is also freedom in early sacrifice. When you do the hard thing first, the rest of the day feels lighter. You walk with a quiet pride, knowing you honored your commitment before excuses had a chance to speak. That pride is not arrogance, it's alignment. It's the peace that comes from knowing you're moving in the right direction, even when no one is watching. Sacrifice at 5 a.m. trains you for bigger sacrifices later. It teaches you endurance. It prepares you for moments when life asks more of you than you expected. And because you've practiced choosing growth over comfort, You don't collapse under pressure. You rise. One day you'll look back and realize the mornings you thought were costing you something were actually giving you everything: clarity, confidence, time, purpose. And you'll be grateful you learned early that comfort is expensive, but discipline always pays in full. When you wake up at 5 a.m. consistently, something quietly powerful begins to grow inside you. Confidence that doesn't need applause. Not the kind that announces itself. Not the kind that demands approval, but the kind that is rooted, steady, and unshakable. You don't chase this confidence, you earn it. And you earn it by keeping promises to yourself when no one else is there to witness it. Most people think confidence comes from success, praise, or external validation. But that kind of confidence is fragile. It rises and falls with opinions. Real confidence is built in private. It's built when you do the hard thing even when you're tired. When you show up even when you're not seen. When your actions align with your intentions day after day. At 5 a.m. there is no one to impress, no comparison, no performance, just you and your commitment. And every time you honor that commitment, you send a powerful message to your subconscious: I can trust myself. That trust is everything. Because when life gets uncertain, and it will, you don't panic. You've already proven to yourself that you can rely on your own discipline. This kind of confidence changes how you walk into rooms. You don't rush to speak. You don't shrink to fit. You don't over-explain your worth. You carry yourself with a quiet certainty that doesn't need validation. People feel it, not because you say anything, but because you are grounded in who you are. Waking up early also teaches you resilience. Some mornings it will feel effortless. Others it will feel heavy. But showing up anyway builds emotional endurance. You learn that discomfort doesn't break you, it strengthens you. And the more you prove that to yourself, the less afraid you become of challenges. Confidence built this way is not loud. It doesn't compete. It doesn't compare. It doesn't need to dominate. It knows its value. And that knowing comes from repeated evidence. From mornings where you chose discipline over excuses. From moments where you didn't wait for permission to do what you said you would do. You also stop outsourcing your self-worth. You no longer depend on outcomes to feel capable. Because even on days when things don't go as planned, you know one thing for certain: you showed up. And that consistency becomes your anchor. Failure loses its power when your identity is no longer tied to perfect results. At 5 a.m., you build confidence through action, not affirmation, through behavior, not belief alone. You don't just tell yourself you are capable, you prove it. And proof changes the way you think, the way you speak, the way you dream. This earned confidence also sharpens your boundaries. You stop tolerating what drains you. You stop saying yes out of fear. Because when you trust yourself, you don't need to cling to external approval. You move with clarity. You choose alignment over acceptance. Over time, this confidence becomes part of your presence. You become someone others rely on, someone who feels stable, someone who doesn't crumble under pressure. And all of it traces back to those quiet mornings where you showed up for yourself again and again. Waking up at 5 a.m. doesn't just change your schedule, it rewires your identity. You stop asking the world to believe in you because you already do. And when confidence is earned this way, nothing can take it from you. When you wake up at 5 a.m. and take time to master yourself before the world asks for you, you begin to understand a deeper truth. Service does not start with giving more. It starts with becoming whole. You cannot pour from an empty place. You cannot lead from exhaustion. And you cannot serve with love when you are running on fumes. Early mornings teach you how to fill yourself first, not out of selfishness, but out of responsibility. The world rewards busyness. It applauds overcommitment. It teaches you that being needed is the same as being valuable. But 5 a.m. interrupts that lie. In the quiet, you realize that your worth is not measured by how much you give away, but by how grounded you are when you give. Self-mastery is the foundation of meaningful service. Without it, giving turns into depletion. With it, giving becomes powerful. At 5 a.m., you are not responding to demands. You are choosing intention. You are deciding how you want to show up before anyone else gets a vote. That decision changes the quality of everything you offer later. Your words become calmer. Your patience deepens. Your presence becomes steadier. People don't just hear you, they feel safe around you. And that safety is one of the greatest forms of service there is. Self-mastery begins with awareness. Early mornings give you the space to notice yourself without judgment. Your patterns, your triggers, your strengths, your limits. When you understand yourself, you stop projecting unresolved emotions onto others. You stop reacting from wounds. You start responding from wisdom. And that shift alone transforms relationships. There is also a spiritual dimension to this hour. Whether you call it prayer, meditation, reflection, or stillness, it reconnects you to something larger than your ego. It reminds you that you are guided, not alone, and not meant to carry everything by yourself. That humility keeps your service clean. It keeps it rooted in love instead of control. When you master your morning, you master your energy. And energy is what people feel long before they hear your words. You can say the right things with the wrong energy and still cause harm. But when your energy is centered, even silence can heal. 5 a.m. teaches you how to regulate yourself so you don't regulate others. Service born from self-mastery also teaches you discernment. You learn that saying no is sometimes the most loving act. You stop overgiving to prove your worth. You start giving where it truly matters. And because your energy is protected, your service becomes sustainable. You don't burn out, you don't resent, you don't disappear from your own life. There is strength in being grounded, strength in being emotionally available without being emotionally drained, strength in showing up consistently, not dramatically. Early mornings give you that strength. They teach you how to be present without being reactive, how to be generous without being empty. You also begin to lead differently, not from authority but from example. People trust you because you trust yourself. They follow you because your life reflects what you say. That kind of leadership doesn't need a title. It's felt in your consistency, your calm, your compassion. When you wake up early to work on yourself, you stop trying to save everyone. You realize that your responsibility is not to fix the world, but to be someone the world can rely on. And that is a profound shift. Because the most impactful service doesn't come from force, it comes from presence. One day you'll notice something beautiful. The more you honor yourself in the quiet hours, the more naturally you uplift others throughout the day. You listen better. You judge less. You give without expectation. Not because you're trying, but because you're full. Waking up at 5 a.m. teaches you that the greatest gift you can offer the world is a well-led life. And when you master yourself first, your service stops being an effort and becomes your nature. One day you will realize that waking up at 5 a.m. was never about the hour on the clock. It was about choosing light before the world demanded your attention. It was about trusting that there is purpose in preparation, meaning in silence, and grace in showing up before you feel ready. Faith is not just something you believe, it is something you practice. Every early morning is an act of faith. Faith that your effort matters even when no one sees it. Faith that discipline will carry you where motivation cannot. Faith that God honors consistency more than noise and obedience more than perfection. You don't rise early to prove your worth. You rise because your life is a gift, and gifts deserve care. You rise because your time is sacred. You rise because becoming who you are meant to be requires reverence, patience, and courage. Some mornings will be hard. Some days will feel ordinary. But faith grows in the ordinary. Strength is built in the unseen. And purpose is revealed to those who are willing to prepare quietly while the world sleeps. So wake up not just from sleep, but from delay, from doubt, from waiting for permission. Honor your mornings and your life will begin to honor you back. Because when you learn to rise with intention, guided by faith and discipline, you don't just change your routine, you step into the life you were always meant to live.